Well, hey everybody, good morning and welcome to session 40 of our verse-by-verse study through the book of Genesis here in our virtual life Bible study at City on a Hill. My name is Pastor Derrick. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Whatever time it is in the day, it's important that you're here. That's all that really matters. We're finishing Genesis today. What a crazy time. It's 40 sessions long. We do have one additional session next week that will go up on next Monday, but it will be just a recap of Genesis, and it will sort of serve because our classes are going to do a recap as well. But first, let's talk about session 40 because, man, this is the way it ends is really, I think, fantastic. I've titled the study guide "The End of the Beginning" because while Genesis spans 50 chapters and certainly a ton of things happen over the course of this book, which you're going to be reminded of next week when I read through the recap, it's really only the beginning of the whole entire narrative of Scripture. I mean, after Genesis ends, you have Exodus, you have the whole trek out of Egypt and into the wilderness, and then possessing the land of Canaan with Joshua, and then the judges that come along, and then the need for kings, the monarchy, Saul, King David, Solomon's sin, which leads to the splitting of the two kingdoms, the southern kingdom of Judah, the northern kingdom of Israel, the prophets that come and prophesy to both kingdoms because of their sin, the eventual exile that the northern kingdom faces, and then the southern kingdom faces later on. I mean, there's just so much that happens. And even then, in exile and after exile, you have prophets who are prophesying as well. There's so much more to the Old Testament. And so while we're coming to the end of Genesis, we're really only coming to the beginning of the rest of the Old Testament, it being that it's only the first book. This chapter, chapter 50, begins with Jacob's funeral procession. So the great patriarch Jacob, who we also know as Israel, dies. He is obviously very cared for. Joseph's response is filled with emotion. He falls on his face. He weeps over him and kisses him. It's interesting. These are not unique practices that demonstrate this sort of sincere devotion, but it is the only time in the Old Testament where we find someone doing this to someone who has died. My intuition is that because of later Mosaic law, there is prohibition against even touching dead people, but here it's not a problem. He is embalmed. It's the one of only 2 times in the Old Testament where someone is embalmed after they die. The only other instance being actually just a few verses after this when Joseph dies. He is also embalmed. It was an Egyptian practice. There's a 70-day time of mourning, which includes a 40-day time of the embalming process. Joseph comes to Pharaoh and asks him to take him to bury him in the fields in Machpelah, which is where both Abraham and Sarah, Isaac, a variety of other people are buried. Leah is actually buried there as well. So it's kind of the patriarchal family, and it's where Jacob desired to be buried. And so Joseph asks Pharaoh. Pharaoh grants him that. He sends with him a royal entourage coming from Egypt as well, with the Egyptian elders, Egyptian military. It's a massive party that goes along with him to bury him. In fact, so much so that when they come to the threshing floor in Atad, it says that the Canaanites saw this massive group of people mourning. They actually heard them and saw them, and they renamed the threshing floor there Abel Mizraim, which is a word that means the mourning of Egypt. And so this is a really, incredible sight, powerful sight of mourning over the man Jacob. There's this great section on reconciliation where Jacob's sons who have betrayed Joseph begin to fear for their life again, thinking that now that Jacob's gone, maybe Joseph will try to exact revenge against them. On the contrary, Joseph is even more forgiving and reconciliatory. I don't know what that word is. He reconciles with them. Conciliatory. I think that's the word I'm looking for. He reconciles with them. And I have some stuff in here that I want you to really think about this week that The theology of Joseph is really important for us to understand. It demonstrates that without faithful obedience to the Lord and trust in His sovereignty, we cannot fully be reconciled to those who harm us. We cannot be fully forgiving of bad things that have happened for us or to us. It is Joseph's commitment to Yahweh's goodness, to His faithfulness to Him, that allows him to forgive in such a radical way, to see the evils done towards him, which were legitimate evils, as something that God could use for good. It kind of almost echoes Paul's words, that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. That's in Romans. He actually says later in Romans that we are not to take revenge, that we are not to be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by doing good. Well, we're only able to do that if we trust that God is sovereignly able to take the bad things that happen to us and use them not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of the world around us. And so Joseph, it's interesting. I mean, he doesn't take revenge against his brothers. There's something else that he could have done. I thought about this week, and it had never occurred to me before. Nothing is ever mentioned of Potiphar and his wife either. Joseph becomes the second most powerful man in Egypt. So when he is brought up to this level and he is given the authority, the ring, remember we talked about the ring and the clothing and the jewels and the name and all the things that Pharaoh gave to him, bestowed upon him to make him the most powerful person in Egypt only under Pharaoh himself. That Mrs. Potiphar had to have been sweating bullets at that point. This is the guy that I wrongfully accused that went to prison for several years because I lied and said he did something that he did not do. What if he remembers me and he comes after me and Potiphar? He could have. He absolutely could have. He could have thrown them in prison. He could have had them executed. He could have done whatever he wanted to do with them. He had a lot of clout. He was very powerful. He doesn't do that. Because Joseph understands that it was Mrs. Potiphar's foul play that landed him in prison, that brought him to the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, that allowed him to interpret the dreams, that eventually led him to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh, which then allowed him to prevent the famine from affecting Egypt and elevating him to the position that he came to, which then allowed him in turn to reconcile with his brothers, to provide for his family, to give land to his family outside of Canaan that was lush and had all kinds of wonderful benefits. Joseph saw all of this, right? But if he had not had trust, faithful trust in the character of God, he could not have done that. Now, maybe he could have still forgiven them and reconciled and kind of moved on his way, but not fully, not to the level that he does here. And so this is an important thing for Christians to understand, that our forgiveness, our ability to forgive, is always based on what has been done for us and our trust in who God says He is. So understand, many of you have probably had unthinkable, difficult things happen to you. And you have pain, you have woundedness, you have anger, you have a desire for revenge. You have a desire to see bad things happen to people who have done bad things to you. Those are natural, normal responses to trauma. But understand that it is not revenge. It is not getting even, settling the score that will bring peace to you in light of those traumatic experiences. It is your faithful trust in the sovereign character of Jesus the Christ. That and that alone. And the sooner you begin to walk in trust in who He is, who He says He is, the better off you will be in the long run. Joseph teaches us this. Joseph teaches us a really important message. I have in our group discussion this morning a talk on reconciliation. I hope that you'll participate in that. I hope that you'll get honest about that. I've got some great questions in here that are kind of icebreaker questions, and then some that may inspire some of you to share at a deeper level. I hope that you'll consider doing that, because this is a topic that we have got to really, really be serious about. We are to be reconcilers as Christians. we hold the keys to reconciliation because God has reconciled us to Him through the blood of His Son. That's the message that we carry. That's the message that drives us and the message that we share with other people. Hope this study has been beneficial, not only session 40, but all of Genesis. I regret that I wasn't able to do video studies for all the sessions prior to where we started. Of course, we started the video sessions during COVID, and moving forward, we'll have video sessions for all the other studies. If I ever get around to doing them, I will let you know, and they'll be available for other people. But nonetheless, the study guides are available on my personal website, thelogicaltheological.com. You can just click study at the top. And we now have on there, I think, 4 full studies, which is pretty incredible. The study through verse by verse through Matthew's Gospel, a verse by verse study through Genesis, a verse by verse study through Colossians, and a devotional study that was about 8 weeks long called the COVID-19 Special Edition Study. We are actually beginning in 2 weeks a study through Amos, and I think it will only last us 8 to 10 weeks. It won't be a long study at all. It just is not necessary time-wise to unfold it. It's not a narrative like Genesis is, and so it will go a little bit quicker. And so, gosh, by the end of the year, you'll have 5 studies on there. And I'm working right now to try to get them published. So if you know of anybody that is in the publishing world, contact me. I'd love to talk with you or talk to them about possibly getting them published for churches to use as curriculum for their Sunday schools. I think they provide a type of study that is not real prevalent in stores today and Lifeways and whatnot. So let me know about that. I'd love to engage a discussion about that. Hope you're having a great week. Next week, like I said, Monday, we'll launch a recap of this study, and that'll be a lot of fun. And then 2 weeks from now, we begin Amos. God bless you. We'll see you next time.